Well, I have chased Larry all the way to some beach in South Carolina, someplace. Which beach, Larry?
North Myrtle.
North Myrtle Beach. Okay. You have to
Sorry,
decide
guys,
how you're
I'm
going to be there. Okay.
having a bit of a problem here.
Right. Well, I'm sure.
It's a very it's put together by plastic elastic bands
Oh, I see.
and gum. What I'm on the road, so
I
I,
see.
I haven't got my road set up
All right. Well, so you have your
professionally.
backdrop. You have your backdrop there for a reason. I understand
Yeah,
that
yeah, I'm on my way to the IFT-6, the sixth
okay.
launch of Starship.
Yes. And we're hoping
Very
that
excited,
you're
Randy. I'm so
going to see
excited.
𝐂𝐦𝐽𝐽 work again, but they are not going to try to catch Starship. I was so
Well, they
sad.
are going to catch
Oh, they are
Starship.
going to catch
Oh,
Starship?
oh, not the ship.
No.
They're going to
Yeah. Yeah.
catch the booster. Sorry. Yeah.
Yeah. Not this time. So, on the Starship. So, so you'll get to see another shot at catching the,
Yeah, the second catch is as important as the first catch because they need to demonstrate that they can replicate it.
right, right.
And if that fails, they're going to have to repeat this process. If it succeeds, I think the very next attempt will be to catch Starship itself.
Right.
And that's going to be very interesting because the question is whether the second tower will be ready by then.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
I
and
saw,
if it's not ready by then, they could theoretically do it on the first tower. It's just they'd have to put Starship into orbit,
yeah,
at least two or three orbits, while they actually
land.
safe the booster, get it off there, and then bring the Starship in.
I saw a conversation, an interview. I'm not going to remember who was in the interview, but this individual was saying that as Musk gets involved in his project to the DOGE project, the Department of Government Efficiency project, that he won't be able to blow things up like he did blowing up rockets. And I thought to myself, no, that's kind of the point. It's kind of to blow things up.
I think that so far in the 16 years I've been following, 17 years I've been following Elon Musk,
Yeah.
every single project he has embarked on, I've heard people tell us why this time he will fail.
Yeah.
Every single one.
Every time. Yes.
So, I'm quite ready to hear all the reasons why he's going to fail this time. I'm quite ready for it.
Yeah. I'm sure that there's going to be plenty of people who are going to try to help him fail.
Oh
Uh,
yeah,
you,
I
you,
mean
you
they've
know,
already. I mean they've been very busy all the way up to now.
yeah.
And look, he doesn't always succeed. It's not 100%, but the ratio of success to failure is extraordinary
Yeah.
and will continue to be.
I'm
I
sure.
heard Kara Swisher today say just how disengaged he is with all his enterprises and they're run by other people. And he just comes in and, he's just a figurehead. She has no earthly idea. And I recommend for those people who think that, they should read his biography by Walter Isaacson, and they should read Eric Berger's new book.
Hmm.
It's been out for a few months, but Eric Berger is a fantastic writer about space.
Mhm.
He wrote the first book about the SpaceX's first attempts to launch Falcon 1 and what they went through to launch it.
Right.
He's just finished writing a book about Falcon 9. And, you know, it is educational to learn from both those sides. And by the way, it's not the only book. There's a certain guy, Randy Kirk, who has written several books on, more the method rather than the man, I guess.
Well, the method is the man. I mean,
I, I
the 16
I'm
the
trying, yeah,
16
I'm just
things.
trying to point out that the
Yeah.
book is much more focused on his business.
Yes, on his
Yeah,
methodologies,
yeah,
right? And his what do you want to call it? Superpowers. Because
yeah,
the 16 things that I out in there are 16
yeah.
things that I have this much of, and that Elon just takes it to an entirely different level.
Yeah,
And that
it's amazing.
you probably have this much of there. I have this much, and then Larry, you have this much, and then, I mean,
I don't know about that.
these
I
are
really don't know about that. I mean, but nonetheless, all these publications fill in a very clear picture.
right.
And that picture, makes us understand just what he brings to the table. Now, so many detractors have spoken about, oh, he's this and he's not that and he's not the other and he's not an engineer because he doesn't have an engineering degree from some institution. I'll talk about that in a little bit. I'm very excited about that. But, you know, none of them have a clue.
No.
None of them have a clue.
Well, all right. Speaking of all of that, Brian Stetler says earlier today that Elon Musk has been seen at Mar-a-Lago nearly every single day since Donald Trump
Yeah,
won, dining with him on the patio at times, weighing in on staffing decisions,
yeah.
making clear his preference for certain roles. Then Caitlin Collins, yeah, she says none of us gets credit for predicting this run-up immediately after the election. Oh, no, I'm sorry. This is me. Caitlin Collins was involved in that. Never mind. I'm not able to handle my own stuff, Larry. None of us gets credit. Not you, not me. None of us got it in terms of this run up, this after election run up. None of us caught it. I don't think a single soul. We predicted maybe that it would be at 300 or 450 later on, but it had to do with the fundamentals, not with this wild 100-point thing that we've watched take place. How much further do you think the Trump effect will take the stock? Are we done? Is this it? Will it go all the way to four
Well,
two?
I don't know what is the stock price today. I don't.
It ended exactly at 350.00. And
That's
then
great.
it's up another $4 in the after hour.
Yeah, I don't. I think we've got a lot of short sellers having to get out of the stock. Um, and I think that does a
Impact.
lot of that puts a lot of rocket fuel into the fire. I I don't take these short-term movements with a great deal of seriousness. I don't follow it on a day-to-day basis, but
Right.
I will say that this is probably close to the right level for the stock.
Mhm.
I had predicted 300, famously predicted $300, thinking I was putting myself out there. I think you predicted 360, right?
Well, I was at 300 forever and ever,
Yeah.
and then I said, well, I think now we can get to all-time high by the end of January. And
Well,
that would certainly
maybe.
and that would certainly happen if unsupervised came into play, that we would definitely
Well,
get.
by the end of January, it's not going to happen. But
I don't think so.
I will say, Dan Ives came out today at 400.
Yeah.
It did not surprise me.
You
I
saw
put a lot.
he said a lot more than 400. He said his price target is 400. Then he said the company is going to be worth 2 trillion,
Yeah.
which is 600 by the end of next year, 18 months, 12 to 18 months.
I mean, Dan has been remarkably perceptive about the Tesla stock, far more so than the rest of the analysts. Um, I set a lot of store by what Kathy says. She's talking about 2 to 3,000, not not necessarily next year, but the year after. But this is all according to Hoyle. And this is exactly what we said a year ago. And when the stock was playing around 200 and then 150 and 160. So I don't regard the day-to-day price as very consequential. I think the target is in the 1,000 to 4,000 range.
Hmm. Hmm.
And that target is in the range of between a year to 4 years' time. So when you're looking at those kinds of parameters,
Hmm.
what does tomorrow's price mean? You know what I'm saying?
Yes. Okay.
I
So
tend
Larry,
not to.
I've got an interview tomorrow that'll be showing tomorrow with Warren Redlich, and I asked them this question. I asked Brian White this morning. I want to ask you because as much as those two individuals are smart and they've run their own very small companies, you've run a bigger company, you've run a larger company, you've been a CEO of a substantial company. How impactful, I believe personally, that it's very impactful. I see this on so many levels. What's what Elon now has with President Trump in terms of networking, in terms of information, incoming information because of the connections they'll have, in terms of his ability to talk to Trump about his mission, because he's so mission driven. Not to say that he did it because he wants to convince Trump about his mission, but that he's going to be sitting there right next to him. He's going to be talking about his life and about it. And Trump is going to be asking, because that's who Trump is. He's going to want to know Musk in detail. And then the elevation, even though Musk was already highly elevated around the world, his elevation in the eyes of other national leaders and other people, that's all in addition to what might happen within the administration when you have a positive administration versus a negative administration. Do those things make sense to you as a company leader? Would you have liked to have that kind of access to somebody at that level?
I'm going to disappoint you by saying I think it's more important for the country than it is for the stock of Tesla.
Okay. Mhm. I think it's
Stock
important
of,
too. Yes, absolutely.
the stock of Tesla, the value of the stock of Tesla is predicated by Tesla's product and the rollout of that product and the ability of Tesla to engineer and meet its um, its vision.
Mhm, mhm.
I don't think that influencing the administration does much more than tactically support moves that are made by Tesla. It does no strategic support of consequence.
Mhm, mhm.
So my friend Rohan Patel, who really is a brilliant man and has done so much to engineer, support at the government level for EVs, places a lot of store on the government sort of the foundational support it provides for
Right.
EVs.
Mhm.
And we've definitely seen the importance of that in, say, in Norway or in China,
Mhm,
where
mhm.
EVs have been phenomenally successful, largely because governments have really pointed in that direction. But if you think about the success of Tesla, and so yes, that has to do with the timing. Being able to influence the government has a lot to do with the timing of the success. But if you think about Tesla and you think about the formation of the company, you think about the initial success and how it got to where it is,
Mhm, mhm.
it really wasn't government support. It was
No.
product, the brilliance of the product, the brilliance of not just the car itself, but the infrastructure and the concept, the product concept, not just of putting an EV an electric motor into the car and a few batteries, but how they built the product
Mhm, mhm,
around the
mhm,
car.
mhm.
And I think that's still the critical component. I don't think getting Trump support or the government support or NHTSA support of yeah, all of this stuff definitely helps, definitely speeds it up, definitely, you know, has the ability to compress time, and all of that's very valuable. But at the end of the day, what distinguishes Tesla against all other automotive manufacturers, all other energy suppliers, energy best suppliers,
Right.
battery, um, suppliers, all other, you know, autonomy suppliers, all other robotic suppliers, all other AI suppliers, is the product, the conceptual product that they create and the customer experience around it that they create. That's the primary driver of the company, and all the rest is tactics. All the rest is tactics.
A
And
compelling product at a compelling price.
a compelling product at a compelling price. And we are talking not about a compelling product. We're talking about a revolutionary product at a compelling price.
Right, right.
And I think the revolutionary is what distinguishes Tesla above all others. That everything they do is not just compelling, it's revolutionary. So if you look at, Falcon 9, if you look at Starship, if you look at um, the manned the manned space
Sending people
capsule.
up to the International Space
Yeah,
Station.
yeah, I forget the name. But all of those things, whatever Tesla does is not just better, it's revolutionary. It doesn't just make it a little bit, just improve it a little bit. It revolutionizes that space. And that's the key. Now, is it important that he has the ear of the administration? Yes. Did it cost Tesla that, Joe Biden was so opposed to him and so hostile? Yeah, it did. There's no doubt about it. But in the end, it didn't matter. In the end, Tesla still won the battle. So
So
yeah, I think it's great. I think it's important, but I don't think it's determinative.
does this, again, it may not have much to do with the stock, or maybe it does. Again, perception is what really matters. And the perception, of course, right now would be that all of this is important, which is why the stock would go up because of it. But also the perception also would be that that Elon, more people at this point are being introduced to the idea that Elon is magical, that he's from another planet, that he's has the golden touch. And as people see that golden touch, I mean, I'm not a fanboy. I'm not the type. I've lived in Santa Monica for 5 years. I've lived in West LA for 50 years. I saw stars all the time. I could care less. I never asked one of them for an autograph. But with Elon Musk, I'm a fanboy because he's magical. he's he's on a different level, and more people, I think, now because of the success of this political effort and his current role in the administration. I think there's going to be another round of folks who are going to see him as magical and who are going to be potential buyers of the vehicles, buyers of the other products, and then also buyers of the stock.
That may be true, but he's also built a lot of enemies along the way. And Trump has a lot of enemies. I mean, this country is extremely divided,
Really.
and there are a lot of haters. There are people who are in shock. There are people who are in, mourning. There are people who are want to get out of the country. There are people who are not Trump supporters or very opposed to Trump, and so he's tarred with that brush. So yeah, there are a lot of people who've now awakened to, just how brilliant he is, but there probably is, I don't know if there's as many people, but there's a fair bunch of people who are very, very negative, very negative.
So you had a particular hobby horse today. apparently Trump has come out with his educational reform list, if you will, which you were watching just before we came on air. So what in particular impressed you with this speech?
This was a critical speech that had the imprimatur of Elon Musk on it. Why? Because it was a first principles. It was really Trump getting to first principles. Trump spoke about how are they going to tackle this problem of education in this country. And what's interesting is he didn't talk about closing down the Department of Education.
Oh, okay.
He talked about using the Department of Education.
Oh,
And how is he going to use the Department of Education? And how is he going to reform the colleges? He didn't talk about Title IX.
okay.
Obviously, they're going to deal with Title IX.
Yes, yes.
What he talked about was accreditation.
Hmm.
They are going to attack the problem of education in this country through accreditation.
Hmm.
And through accreditation, they're going to eliminate DEI.
Mhm.
They're going to impose standards that these colleges are going to have to meet to the tune of fines that could exceed their entire endowment.
Whoa. Okay.
Now, talk about first principles. These colleges have become businesses.
Yes.
They've become enterprises. They've become enterprises that are all about money,
Hmm.
accumulating vast stores of money upon which a vast number of administrators enrich themselves
Right.
to the extent that business people would be ashamed. So
Yes.
how do you tackle it? Somebody was working from first principles. You can say, what is the job of the college? It's
Hmm.
education.
Hmm.
How do we enforce that these colleges do proper education? Through accreditation. So I thought it was rather brilliant. I thought it was probably the most important thing that I was concerned about in this election.
Hmm.
One of the reasons, and there are many, it's not just one, but one of the reasons I've moved from, center left, left
Hmm.
of center to significantly right of the center that's now been
Right.
established.
Exactly. Yes.
And And so I thought that somebody had been giving some first principles consideration to what is education about and how do we enforce that as a standard. So, the ultimate problem is that we have more administrators than we have staff, accredited staff. We have more administrators in some colleges than we have pupils.
Yes.
We have more administrators who are concerned about the social environment on college than we have about the education environment. So the time has come to say, guys, you're using your money in a way that's not acceptable.
Hmm.
If we're going to allow you to be this private, not for profit, not taxed, in other words, institution to accumulate all this money to pay yourselves all this salary. And it was a very strong speech, very to the point, brilliantly written and brilliantly delivered. I have to give it to Trump, but
Hmm.
it's not my favorite.
Speaker. Yeah. Right.
I'm not crazy about his speeches. I'm not crazy about him as a person. But there you are. He delivered it straight up. I
Yeah.
mean, no ice, no rocks, you know, no sweetener, no nothing, just straight up. This is what we're going to do. And there's going to be a hell to pay in the press tomorrow. I'm sure of it. but my goodness, what a breath of fresh air.
Well, I've seen this over and over now. I was asking Grok the other day when these things were coming out because I guess some of them came out before the election, but I didn't see them until after. There's been at least four, and that might make number five of these lists of 10. The way to deal with free speech, the deal to, and there's these lists of 10 things that are going to be done on each of these
Yeah.
categories. And they're very clean. And again, I thought Elon all the time when I saw these. They're the kinds of things that I would have done too. I love lists of 10. I have this reputation for always having a list of how to get to something. I do it, I guess I do it on the show even. So I saw these lists of 10, and they were all really good. Now, some of them didn't seem to be under the purview of the federal government. I wasn't quite sure how the federal government would be able to make them happen because it was not necessarily a federal something the federal government had control of. But they
It
were,
is money.
yeah, there's commonly there would be the money flowing to a state would
Yeah.
stop if they don't do what they're needing to do. So in any case, that combined with the number of appointments that have already been laid out, some of them have to be confirmed, but the number of appointments, all this activity, I don't remember ever seeing a transition that is this far along after 4 days. Do you, Larry?
Wow, they are executing it. When you consider the chaos of the previous
Right,
Trump administration, the outset, and I mean, he didn't expect to be elected president.
right, right.
But when you see just how they're executing in this incredibly organized, disciplined way, this is not the Trump administration we saw before. And look, it was a good administration. It
Right.
did well.
Yes.
I one of the things that I did after the first attempted assassination, the one that shocked me, is I went back and recalibrated. I did an inventory
Mm,
of the Trump um, administration of the Trump years and scored how he did, and I was shocked at all the great things that he did. Now, I still hold that he mishandled the pandemic
yeah.
because he allowed himself to be controlled by
The
the
doctor.
NHS and so on. But I mean, that's a crisis situation that he didn't,
Right.
meet the standards that I think we should have set for our president. But then Biden came in and did much worse.
Yeah, it's true.
So anyway,
Yeah, no, I have compared it to Reagan in that both of them came in with very specific agendas. In
yes.
fact, in Trump's case, people say that he had a blackboard or a whiteboard in his office or someplace in the White House. He had this whiteboard and it had these 7 different things that he wanted to accomplish before he got out, and he got 6 of them done. So that's usually, a pretty good evidence if you can get 6 out of 7 of the things you wanted done in your time in office.
Yeah, I mean, one of the problems that of what he got accomplished is that so much of it could have been undone and was undone. But look, we've got quite a lot to work to do to get the Senate and the House to align with him, and because some of the objectives he's going to need them, the tax,
Yes,
to
yes.
ensure that make permanent the tax cuts, and just a lot of other things. And if Elon's going to succeed in cutting, I did my first piece on the budget on the tax.
Oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah, it's getting a lot of views. My
I'll
word,
have to go watch that.
we're up
Okay.
to 135,000 right now.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow. I'll
yeah,
have to go watch that for sure.
yeah, and that's all about just how intractable the problem is, because I looked at the numbers, and the bottom line on the numbers is that the healthcare and retirement or Social Security
Sure.
together between them are like 80% of the problem.
Right. Right.
So even if and then if you take the balance, which is not entitlements, if you take the non-entitlements,
Mhm.
50% of that is in the military.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
so we're only so Elon can only really tackle, and I'll get to why he can tackle actually the entitlements, but in terms of saving money, reducing costs,
Mhm. Mhm.
he really can only tackle that 30%.
Mhm. Mhm.
And half of that is the military, and half of that is the rest of the government. And we always talk about all this wasted money in the government. Well, outside the military is only 15% of the total.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the impact on the deficit is relatively small from saving all the money on those. What is important is reforming the healthcare problem, which has become I mean,
Mhm.
they said that Obamacare would be neutral.
Yeah.
It
Yeah.
hasn't been
Not.
neutral at all. It's exploded in cost. And quality of service has gone down very significantly.
Right.
And I don't think it achieved its goal. And then the other side of it is Social Security.
Mhm.
Nobody's prepared to tackle that, but the the trust itself is going to go insolvent,
Right.
which means government's going to have to pay. So I don't regard that trust as anything but a figment of some crazy imagination. Anyway, that's the bottom line. So that the first part, what I did already and what I've put out is all about what is healthcare and what is the entitlements
Mhm.
of the deficit, and it's a huge portion. It's two-thirds,
Right.
62% of the total. And so you really are looking at, only a third of it that you can fix, of which half is the defense budget. And there's obviously huge amount in the defense budget, but even if there's a huge amount, you're only at the 4 or 5% mark.
So, Larry, what if you approached it from another direction? And
Yeah.
we kind of touched on this last week, but let's touch on it again. Instead of looking at it by department, what if you looked at it from the standpoint of total employees outside the military? So, are administrative employees even in the
But
ministry?
the administrative costs are not the problem.
Well, no, I'm just saying, just hear me out for a minute. So,
Yeah.
let's you have 3 million employees,
Yeah.
which I think is
No,
the
it's 2
number.
million. 2 million plus the military.
And is that military all, meaning troops, or is that a lot of administrivia there as well?
There's administrivia there, so there's the office of the military, or no, they call it the Department of Defense,
Right.
and then there's the military itself. Yeah.
So if you have, let's call it 3 million employees, then even counting the military. And now I don't think we want to reduce the troops, the number of troops that are under that are currently in the military. But if you were to reduce the overall administration, that total number of employed people, by making it more efficient, by getting rid of the people that we know are not doing
You're
any
only halving the cost of a third.
having the cost of a third, having a
You're
half,
you're only dealing with one third
one
of the
third.
budget.
Right. Okay. So, so then would that be though 100 billion or a couple of 100 billion or?
Oh, more than a couple 100 billion.
Okay.
I mean, you're looking at trillions. You billions don't count anymore.
Okay.
You're looking at numbers in the
So if
trillions.
you could really, really get in there and drive out a lot of those employees by making them more efficient, maybe you could get the first trillion.
Doesn't help.
Well, he's only said he'd get rid of two. So now the second trillion for me, because this is where I dealt with the government, was selling them things. And that's a mess, Larry. I mean, the amount of money that the government spends on stuff that they don't need to spend, I know personally, I watched it happen because of all the requirements they have for selling it to blind people or deaf people or people that are, I mean, companies that have X number of deaf people are people that run by women or run by
Just
small kids.
remember,
And
you
that's
can
not
take out
counting the
half the
corruption.
cost. You can take out half the cost of everything the government does.
Everything. Okay.
Buying, salary, whatever, half the cost.
Okay.
You haven't solved the problem.
So the amounts that you were talking about that are 60% would be the actual checks that are coming to me in Social Security, or the actual check that's going to somebody to pay for
And
them.
here is the value add. It is if you can get into the health insurance business, if you can get into the health cost business
Right.
and change the health system,
Mm-hmm.
therein lies a huge amount
Huge.
of money. If you can get people to retire 2 years later,
Mm-hmm. A huge
therein
amount.
lies a huge amount of money.
Right.
Those two buckets are more important than all the administrivia you're talking about and all the overpayment of what you purchase. People are very focused on the administrivia and they're very focused on the wasteful purchasing. But you know, in the healthcare, it's obviously all about wasteful purchasing,
Right. Right.
but it's tied up, very deeply tied up in how you insure healthcare and how you pay for healthcare and how you determine what to pay for and how you determine what healthcare services to give. So we are very focused on, you know, wasteful employment and wasteful purchasing. But I'm telling you, that's not the target. I'm telling you, the target is how we deliver healthcare and how we manage healthcare and how we provide retirement benefits and how we charge for retirement benefits.
Right. Right. Have you thought anything about the idea that Bush proposed 20 years ago for Social Security of
Oh, yeah.
turning it into a something that's where the money's not in.
Bush's proposal was so far looking, was so forward looking,
Right.
was so advanced. We would have been in such great shape to have
If we've done
adopted
it. Yeah. Yeah.
that turning that down was one of the great, you know, his inability to make that happen was one of the great failures of his administration, but it was very far-seeing in what he did. And had we done that then, I don't think we'd be in the mess we're in today.
Well, I
But
don't
we're
think.
in a very serious mess.
Yeah, I think there's some of the Northern European countries that are are putting the money into the index funds instead of into treasuries, and have completely solved their Social Security problem forever, or at least
Well, you're
apparently.
probably talking about Norway because Norway's been a poster child, but Norway had this incredible amount of oil
Yeah,
per capita of citizens.
right.
We've got great oil, but it's not
Not
anything
like
like
them.
they've got per capita of
Right,
citizens.
right. Yeah, well, but anyway, so that would be a possible direction to take, and
Oh,
and
yeah.
and I'm of course.
But the way to do it is to do it 20 years ago. You know,
But there's no time like the present.
absolutely. No,
Okay,
absolutely. I look, reforming Social Security is the third rail of
right,
American politics.
right.
I don't think Elon and Trump are going to be in a position to tackle it in 4 years. I don't think so. If they
Yeah,
did, if they were able to tackle it, it would be a miracle. But they would have had to have, you know, a much bigger
majority.
majority in the Senate, and they would have had to have a very strong working majority of their type of people in the House of Representatives. It's
At least,
likely they'll have a majority in the House of Representatives. Likely they'll have a majority in the Senate. Unfortunately, a lot of the Republican senators don't have warm, fuzzy feelings about Trump.
so the advantage they have is that they do have a target in terms of a deadline. So the 2033 deadline, Something has to be done by then, so they might be able to bring people on board based on the idea if we don't do it now, we're just kicking the can down a few years. Somebody eventually is going to have to deal with it, and Trump is one term only, so he can take the flack. He can take the heat.
Yeah, I mean, he has the courage to do it. He has definitely has the chutzpah to do it. It'll, it'll depend on just how, I mean, the statement tonight on education was, I mean, it was incredible. If he were to govern like that, I'd, do everything in my power to help him.
Larry, there was a very good day on Wall Street today.
Oh, really?
This is called Good News Monday, and 8.96 for Tesla, ending at exactly 350 on the
How
dot.
many up days have we had now?
A bunch, a bunch. And in the after hours, we're up 680. So we've actually, I think, yes, we've eclipsed, no, not quite as high as the intraday high, which reached 358.64, but we are at 356.85 in the after hours. So a pretty strong indication that we'll have another update tomorrow. If we're really going to be around 360, how much further is it to 410? I mean, we're really not, we're talking 2 days, Larry.
Wow.
But if you really want to know, who had a good day today, then you would go over and you would check on you would check on Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Let's see.
And I bet you gold is having a bad time.
Oh, yeah, gold is not doing so well, but Bitcoin was up 10.6, actually, it wasn't as much, 10.68%, $8,479 to 87,792. So it is trying to touch on 90.
Kathy must be having a very good day.
Kathy, I said this morning, Larry, that this will be the year that Kathy will finally make it back onto the front page of Fortune magazine.
Boy, she has really done a great job.
So she's held on and kept saying, "This is my plan. I'm a 5-year person." So she's had to wait for 3 years, had
Yeah,
all
but if she's
all the
right,
fix on it.
this is just the beginning.
Oh yeah, oh yeah. So she's hit it out of the park on Elon again. She's so much so that she's having to sell because it's getting to be such a big part of her portfolio. And then Bitcoin going crazy like this is obviously helping her a ton, as well as some of the other stocks in her portfolio.
Yeah,
So crazy times. You mentioned gold. Well, we have gold did not have such a great day.
right.
Not horrible. Gold
But you
was,
know what this means?
oh, well, it's up in the pre-market actually.
Up in the pre-market, huh?
Only $11, but it's 26.29, so it's well under that all-time high. But
Yeah, I thought the rotation would be, US stocks up, gold down. Oil is going to be down.
yeah, well, oil, in fact, oil is up in the pre-market also, but it dropped big time today. It's at
Yeah.
68 for Texas Intermediate now.
Yeah,
60.
I didn't have to look at the market to know
Yeah,
these
you knew
numbers.
exactly what's going on. But you know what's going the other way is natural gas is going crazy. Are
Well,
you
that's the very short-term cycle. So
Well, there was one thing that came up. Did you see that the other day? Europe called America and they said, well, maybe we should buy some of your natural gas.
yeah, I mean, it's a political issue. I mean, they know that Russia. I mean, the situation in Russia is just terrible.
Yeah. And then apparently they had a really rough day or two in the war in Ukraine. So let's see here. What else does that leave us to talk about, Larry? The bonds, of course, did not have a market today, and they haven't quite opened up for the pre-market to be able to tell us what's going to happen tomorrow. My guess is I actually think bonds might start to have a rally also. I'm not sure they're going to stay up this high. I don't think they're going to drop way down, but I don't think they're going to stay in this 4.3 range. I think that's just a little too hot given the inflation.
You know, this is such an interesting moment for bonds. I'm not sure in this environment that we're not going to see a lot of bond buying from a lot of foreign entities again.
Oh,
So we could actually see, I mean, it could be very interesting, could be very interesting, could be a reversal for bonds.
we know that the rule of international commerce has always been when the United States sneezes, the rest of the world gets pneumonia. That works the opposite way too. If the United States is doing extremely well, it should tend to help other countries. Now, if Trump is
Yeah,
going to,
but the bonds are all about flows of cash.
well, I understand that. I understand that. But I was talking about their economies.
Oh
So,
yeah, yeah.
so their economies, which are not doing well. I mean, China's not doing well. Russia's not doing well. Europe is not doing well. I mean, they're just pretty much across the board. There's nobody else doing well. You know, I'm not sure why Biden and Harris didn't point to this more frequently. It seemed like they really missed something they should have been pushing on, which is no matter how good or bad you think the U.S. economy is doing, we're doing amazing compared to everybody else.
You know why they didn't point that out? They had no frigging clue.
And they probably didn't know
I
what.
mean, talk about clueless. You know, Kamala had absolutely no sense other than feeling and what is gonna what I mean,
Joy, joy, joy.
joy. I'm absolutely clueless.
Yeah, so
Why
she
would
wouldn't have been
I?
able, she wouldn't have been able to sell it. She wouldn't have been able to explain it or sell it or talk about what was going to happen next. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Because yeah, you're right. I don't think she probably did. She probably didn't really have any understanding, just like she had no understanding of international relations. She probably
No,
had no
no.
understanding all of the economy. No, there'd be no evidence that she did. No,
I mean, I've never seen. I think in the history of American presidential candidates,
right.
she has to be in the pantheon of the worst.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. She was not, yeah, she didn't have the basic, kind of the basic skill sets, the
She
basic
couldn't. She
knowledge.
couldn't. She couldn't reason logically.
Right, right.
I mean, this is a person who's supposed to be a lawyer.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Well, she didn't go to a very good law school, and she didn't graduate very high in her class. And then she also missed, she didn't get the bar the first time. So that might give you
Well,
some.
in Los Angeles, I understand it's quite. In California, I understand it's quite difficult to get.
At the school that she went to, 85% passed the first time. I looked that up. Yep. Yep.
Anyway, the point is, she was not that bright,
Oh.
and she had no clue.
Right.
Anyway,
Okay. All right. So I was just my point was going to be that if the tariffs don't completely eliminate the ability of European countries and Australia and other countries that do some exports to the United States, we could see some kind of a benefit worldwide to a US that is just going crazy in terms of their economy, I mean.
right. But money flows to the victor. So there's going to be a huge flow of cash,
To the
and
US.
it's going to be good and bad. Always these things, have.
Right.
So we'll see. We'll see. I mean, the question is, if our economic activity picks up, how do the others do?
Right.
Will they benefit from that? China definitely will, because even today they sell a fair amount of stuff to us.
Oh yeah.
Um, you know, it could be that we lead a recovery in the world economy, but Europe's in terrible travail. We started talking about Europe buying our gas
Right.
instead of buying the Russian gas.
Right.
Um, you know, you'd think that they would have learned their lesson in 2014 after the Russians invaded, took over Crimea and then invaded the Donbass. And, I still hear these stupid comments like from David Sachs saying, oh, the Donbass is all Russian and they want to be Russian. I mean, that he has no clue what's going on in the ground. Everybody in the Donbass ran away to the rest of Ukraine. I mean, they depopulated the Donbass with people leaving and going to the Ukraine. They hated the Russians. There
Yeah.
is a small coterie of Russians that wanted the Russians there, and there are people who are just too poor to leave, but they hated the Russians. Anyway, the point is, you know, yeah, I'm probably getting too deep in this. So
Yeah. So anyway, I guess that pretty much wraps it up for today, unless you have any last thoughts with regard to Tesla specifically, which is what the channel is all about, or thoughts with regard to the stock market or the economy specifically over these next days, because it has
I'm a
been
little,
a
I'm
remarkable
concerned
week.
about Tesla actually meeting the goals that Elon set for sales this quarter. Didn't get off to a great start. It could still be good, but didn't get off to a great start. Also on Tesla, I saw two very good analysts, really outstanding analysts, James Catt and
Mhm.
AJ, talking about next year. Very bullish,
Very bullish.
very bullish. The numbers are coming out pretty good, and they're aligned with what I'm thinking. So I would recommend everybody looks at James and everybody looks at AJ. Subscribe if they can, because those numbers are very compelling. I didn't go into great detail, but I looked at them in general, and they comport with what I'm thinking about Tesla for next year. So, they're talking about a modest 25 to 35% increase in earnings for next year, and then somewhat explosive earnings the the following year. That's aligned with what I'm thinking, and I think all of that supports the sort of talk that we're hearing on Wall Street, and we're getting upgrades all the time now,
Yes,
all the
yes.
time now, that go beyond upgrades just because we had a good quarter. They're going, they're upgrading because of autonomy and because of, all the good things that are coming down the pike.
Yes, with any luck at all, if AJ is able to finish, because he's not quite finished with his analysis for 2025,
Yes.
but if he finishes it in time, he's going to be on my show Friday morning
Fantastic.
before you're on, so we can talk about it. But he's going to be,
Fantastic.
and we'll go over the whole 2025 look for next year, which I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, I mean, you should have me on that same show. I'd love to participate if I can.
Yeah, that might work out. It'd be like 8:30 Friday morning would be for you. Yeah.
I'll probably be in Boca Chica by then. Well, let's see. I may be
All
on
right.
the road actually. So
All right.
we'll see, but I'd love to. I mean, I think if he does that and he's done in time, I'd love to hear it anyway. So I'll listen in. But that's fantastic. That's very good news.
All right. Okay. So, Larry, you know what I'm gonna do though? I've got 2 minutes until the bonds are out. So I'm just gonna put you on, I'm gonna say goodbye to you. I'm gonna put the show on pause for 2 minutes. I'm gonna let everybody know what happened to the bonds. So
Nothing much.
nothing much. Okay. It's been
That's
great.
my prediction. I don't know. I don't know, but that's my prediction.
As always, Larry, thank you for coming on and helping.
Thanks, Randy.
Bye
Good
for
night.
now. Okay, let's take a look at those bonds after we let Larry take off. We do have them now, and what we've got is actually, you see, what does Randy even know? They're up to 2.6 basis points in the in the pre-market rather. That is on the 10-year, putting us at 4.334. So they did come down a little today, but then in the pre-market now back up again. Let's compare those to the 2-year. 2 years up 2.9%, 2.9 basis points rather. The 2-month similar, 2.5. I'm sorry, the 3-month is up 5.4 basis points and the 2-month up 2.5 basis points. So no, I would say across the board, sell off in bonds. Rotation definitely is towards equities at this moment. And also, as has been mentioned a couple of times now, people are also talking about the rotation out of the Mag 7 and into the small and mid caps. So that's what seems to be happening kind of in general in the market right now. So that's all I got for you right now. We will have regular programming tomorrow. If you haven't watched it yet, Brian White and I earlier today did a real fun video where we talked about similar kinds of things. You could get Brian White's opinion about where the market is, where it's going, how Tesla is doing in terms of the stock, and also the transition into the Trump administration, how he saw the impact of that. Very interesting conversation with Brian White, and I'll put the card up right there. Until next time, it's been great talking to you.